Welcome to Tech Talk. My name is Mpumi Mpama. The realization that most of the world relies on the internet should prompt us to ask ourselves these questions. How much of my life is dependent on the internet? How much of my personal information is stored online? How much of my business is accessible over networks? How much of my customers' information is accessible over networks? With such a high dependency on computers, neglecting the likelihood of cybercrime in your business is extremely risky and potentially harmful to you, your business, your employees, and your customers. Without a sense of security, your business is functioning at a high risk of cyber attacks. This is Tech Talk on Galaxy, and today we are talking about cybersecurity. With me in studio is Mr. Lehan van der Heever from Kaspersky, here to help me unpack this. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Now, one or two descriptions of cybersecurity would be, for example, computer security or information technology. Security is the protection of computer systems and networks from the theft of or damage to their hardware, to their software or electronic data, as well as from the disruption and misdirection of the services they provide. Would you agree with this explanation?
Yeah, it's a very good explanation. It actually covers quite a few of the topics.
Okay.
Cybersecurity is really becoming a part of our lives now. I think where it used to be a profession for, the few, it's now starting to touch people's personal lives.
Yes.
With the merger of everything going online now, the Internet of Things and such, so much of our personal information is out on the web, and we're being, it's exposed. So cybersecurity, from being a profession, has actually moved across a little bit to becoming something we should all be more aware about. We can't just believe that if you have an Apple or a specific type of phone, that manufacturer necessarily takes care of your security for you.
Yeah.
You need to take some ownership in that. So apart from the various different disciplines there is in cybersecurity, definitely the personal nature of it is coming to the forefront. And while this personal pronunciation is becoming more and more, so is the means of the attacker.
Okay.
So it's really becoming quite a bit of a task to protect yourself against emerging threats and the different tools that the attackers are using these days, and what they can do with your data and so on. So there's a lot about this in the news these days. I think a lot of people are becoming a little bit more aware about it.
Yes, true.
It's really important for everyone to start getting into at least understanding a little bit about what cybersecurity is about.
So in other words, the more advanced we get when it comes to technology and the Internet of Things and all of those things, the cyber attackers are getting more advanced as well.
Yes, absolutely. So it's an economies of scale thing. So basically, in the earlier days, malware used to be kind of something that you heard about every now and again. But obviously, everything becomes popular. It becomes commoditized in a sense, and the attackers, as much as the advancement of attacks rises, the demand for those attacks rise at the same time. So the tools used that used to be very expensive tools in order to create real havoc has also decreased in price.
I see.
So if you want to, for example, buy attacks online, you can do that. There's hackers for hire, there's all these different services.
Sure.
So as much as we are really leaning into becoming more aware about cybersecurity, attackers are just getting better and better tools daily as well. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that we're kind of playing catch up all the time to get to that level of being able to prevent attacks against future kind of attacks and the things that can actually disrupt not just your business but your family as well.
That's true. So we're going to go through different types of cybersecurity.
Sure.
But I would like us to start with for example, critical infrastructure security. Now, in that case, we're talking about common examples, which are electricity grids, the water purification and so on. Can cyber attackers go into those?
Yes, so actually critical infrastructure is becoming a very commonly attacked arena, and it's quite a different arena to normal information technology networks, in the sense that the protocols and the communication that's used within these infrastructures are not that commonly known to IT people.
Okay.
So there's been a case, not recently, it was in 2012, this is where it actually came to light that infrastructure security needs to become a thing, where actually an industrial NATO nuclear plant was infected with such malware.
Yeah.
And the malware was actually written in such a way that it could manipulate different parameters within the instruction set of the plant, which actually resulted in some of the mechanisms and the machinery in the plant to behave abnormally.
Yeah.
But from the screen that they were viewing it was printing out normal statistics. So actually what happened there is they had to shut down the entire nuclear plant to avoid damage, maybe an explosion.
Yes, of course.
And as of then, industrial cybersecurity has become very, very well described, and the focus is starting to get onto it.
Yeah.
In South Africa, we do have the Critical Infrastructure Bill as well. We've got the MOSH Act. Both of those acts talk about, not as in-depth as we would like, but
it
does touch on cybersecurity. So you also can't just run the regular cybersecurity stuff on these systems, because critical infrastructure, you know, if it goes down, you sit without power or electricity, or if it's in a mine, you could have machinery fail.
That's true.
So whatever software we put in those environments, the number one thing we think about is keeping production alive whilst protecting the systems.
Is disrupting production the only thing that these attackers are trying to do, or is there something deeper they're trying to do?
Yes, so motivation is different every time.
Yeah.
For example, the example I explained before was politically motivated. So sometimes you get, they mentioned that World War III will be a cyber war. It's very true already. It's just so quiet that we don't know. So a lot of it is industrial espionage. It could be opposing companies attacking each other. It could be nations, state actors. There's various reasons we can see it. But the effect could literally lead to loss of life. I mean, we're talking about critical infrastructure. That's true. So it's a very serious
Hospitals,
problem.
for example.
Yes, absolutely. In hospitals, we've seen a rise in those as well, especially during COVID. I mean, unfortunately, the attackers seem to have no moral code. So during COVID, we've seen a massive rise in different types of attacks, as well as that of hospitals. I mean, we remember the Life Hospital group that was attacked in South Africa. Same World Health Organization are fending off attacks on the daily. So yes, absolutely.
So it goes deeper than what we see.
Absolutely. Motivation differs from either monetary to espionage or disruption, or, there's always some sort of motivation. We at Kaspersky try and, in a lot of these big attacks, we get involved in the analysis and the investigation of the attacks. And if attribution is at all possible, we do try and make attribution of who could be behind it.
Wow. Let's get to the next one, application security. I know this one involves antivirus programs, it involves firewalls and all of that. Tell us more, please.
Yeah, sure. So this is like brushing teeth, it's the basics. You really need to have these things in place. You've got your perimeter security. Essentially, that's the first entry levels. That's going to be your firewalls, switches, routers, gateways. Those areas need to be secured. Especially from coming into your network. That's the first. That's like the gate at the outside. And then internally, you've got a lot of different technologies that needs to kind of play hand in hand. And this is where the challenge comes in, is that the cybersecurity discipline has become so vast that it's really difficult for CIOs and CISOs these days to really prioritize on which solutions to take and which actually makes the best impact on lowering your attack surface. But obviously, yes, you're right. The basics like putting application protection, so endpoint protection and such, those things need to be in place as well.
Wow.
So networks have always kind of been protected by purely specific devices that are interlinked by wires. Or network cabling. So it's becoming more and more important these days to know exactly what travels across those lines.
Right.
So in a sense, you're going to start, if you really want to know what's going on in your business, you need to start sniffing your own traffic. For example, there's a solution that they broadly name NDR, Network Detection and Response.
Yes.
We offer such a solution as well. That allows for the capturing of all this data and then analyzing it for any kind of sporadic behavior or threats or anything like that. We also, it's important to, you obviously hear the terms machine learning a lot these days, and fourth industrial revolution and all this stuff. But it's an important component to this because a human being cannot act as fast as machines can.
That's true. Yeah.
It's just our bandwidth is too slow. So if you are using machine learning in order to look at the behavior of a network, we'll also be able to see anomalous detection. So if anything behaves outside of the norm or whatever it's not supposed to look like, that will be detected and reported on. So yes, networks, very important these days to have not just visibility on your endpoints and at the perimeter, but actually inside the network. How is things moving around? And what do we see?
So it's important to always be aware of sometimes changing the password when you see anything that is irregular or anything that's not going according to what you used to.
Absolutely. So password changing is actually the cheapest and quickest thing that you should do in almost every case. So if something goes wrong and you know that maybe they've acquired access of some sort, a password change out the bat is something that should be initiated immediately.
Sure. Now, cloud security. Now, I know that improved cybersecurity is one of the main reasons why we have cloud security. Is this correct?
Well, yes and no. So cloud security or the moving to cloud is a necessary thing. It allows for just a much wider amount of resources that can be allocated to services. You know, a lot of having your own hardware is very bloated. You pay a lot for the hardware and you only use a small specific piece of the hardware. Cloud allows you to actually spread the butter, kind of to call it like that, across a lot of hardware. The problem with cloud is that now it sits in a place that is visible. It's accessible to everyone. But obviously the main vendors involved in the cloud migration has taken good care of this. They've put certain measures in place. However, if you look at the T's and C's of a lot of these vendors, they do still make mention explicitly of the fact that you are responsible for your security. So on top of the layers of security that they can provide, it's always still very important to consult with a security vendor and ask them to maybe do a bit of a vulnerability assessment and have a look at whether their infrastructure is really as protected as they would like. And then, put the measures in place to obviously circumvent any kind of attack surface problems.
And then getting to Internet of Things. I know that with Internet of Things security, devices are frequently sent in a vulnerable state and offer little to no security at all. This poses unique security challenges for all of us, or all users. Could this simply mean anything connected to the Internet is at risk?
Actually, yes. So pretty much, So as soon as your watch has an IP address, or in America they had the story about the baby monitors. That could be accessed from the internet. And you're very right in saying that, if you think about these developers, let's take a baby monitor company as an example. What do you think their core focus as a business is? It's not really the security, it's to get a functional solution. They don't specialize in security, and for a lot of them, security comes as secondary of importance. So they've hacked a lot of these baby monitors, and you can just imagine that is like the ultimate point of invasion of privacy. So Internet of Things is a very, very fast, rapid growing field, and the security thereof is very, very badly lacking behind. So there are solutions coming to the market, like putting an IoT gateway in place that handles all information or all IoT security that flows through one point out of your house.
Yes.
But then as soon as you leave your house again, you lose that kind of security. I actually bought my daughter a smartwatch the other day with GPS tracking. She's only 5 years old, but I need to know where she is at all times. And obviously, being in the space that I am, did some testing on this little device just to see if it's up to my standard of things that need to be closed and in place.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, very, very easy to get into these devices from the outside. So yes, IoT is something that, again, it's necessary. It's going to make our lives easier.
Yes.
It's going to promote just the living standards and quality of life. But all the vendors out there really need to take stock of the amount of security that they put in place.
Yeah. So in other words, let's not just be taken about technology and all its advances and get excited about all of that.
Absolutely.
We need to consider cybersecurity as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Very important.
Yes.
Now, there's malware. Malware is a term used to describe malicious software, including spyware, ransomware, viruses, and worms, and so on and so on. What's going on there?
Yeah, so basically, malware is just a group name to kind of classify malicious software. So software that's developed with malicious intentions. And again, it varies if you look at the time lapse from, let's say, the early 2000s and you look till now. It's really pivoted into becoming very risky in getting infected with malware.
Yeah.
You mentioned ransomware. Ransomware is obviously at the tip of the tongue of all security people in the industry.
Okay.
And we thought it would be a bit of a trend, but it's a trend that's not dying off. It's like all-star sneakers.
Yeah.
It just stays around. And so ransomware is devastating. If you get hit by ransomware, it's cancer for your business. Everything can get shut down within a couple minutes. If you think about companies like Maersk, the big container company, Saudi Aramco is now a customer of ours afterwards. They got locked out of their systems as massive global. I mean, Saudi Aramco is probably the biggest business in the world.
Yeah.
So yes, malware is just it's a name given to something, but it doesn't rank at all. So there's various different types of malware, and the severity levels of them differ quite drastically.
Yeah. How true is it though that there's some cell phones that are made and manufactured and they come with malware already? How true is that?
Well, it depends on the manufacturer. So there has been cases, unfortunately. It's very unfortunate when you find out that a hardware manufacturer has been involved in anything of such sort.
Yes.
Which has happened. Luckily, it happens very seldomly. What I can advise our users and our viewers out there is just be cognizant of the brands.
Of the brands,
you know, my mother never believed in brand names, but when it comes to technology, it does matter. Make sure that you don't just pick up the knockoff brands. I'm not going to mention any names, but yes, just make sure that you get something reputable.
Yes.
Then you should be covered.
You should be safe.
Yes.
In terms of phishing, and when it comes to phishing, for those who don't know at home, it's the practice of sending fraudulent communication that appears to come from a reputable source, like from a big company or so, usually through email. What is the goal here? What are they trying to achieve?
Yeah, so phishing is a multi-billion-dollar industry, actually. If you look at the side effect that it causes, that's usually what we call the first stage of reconnaissance of your business in an attack chain.
Yes.
So when an attack happens, let's say it's a very advanced persistent threat, which is just another term for a very serious malware case. Usually there's an attack stage that unfolds. Now, phishing is the process of using human weakness against themselves. So we call it social engineering.
Right.
It's where you promise someone that they've inherited money or something. We know
which is a common one.
It's so common. And now during the COVID period, for example, I've become the local guy that gets sent all these fraudulent FNB and Standard Bank messages with links that don't actually take you to the real websites. So those are all phishing attacks. They phish you into going to or doing something that you're not supposed to do, but you were thinking that you were doing something else.
Yeah.
Now, the side side effect of that is that if that's part of an APT attack or an advanced attack on your business,
Yes.
that's usually step one. If they can get that right, that spawns of a chain reaction inside your organization that can get them to their end goal. And that end goal ranges.
Yes.
Stealing of data or bringing the business to its knees. It depends on the actor.
But it starts with the phishing.
It usually so 90+% starts with phishing,
Which
or
is
some
why-
sort of email. Yes.
Yeah, which is why the banks would tell you that we would never ask you for your password by email.
100%. The banks are doing what they can, and they're doing a phenomenal job at making people aware and creating that awareness. You know, I see myself skipping through those messages, but take notice. Take a quick read through it. Usually, the little summary at the top will tell you what's important.
I have an interesting one here. Man in the middle attack. It's quite interesting because a lot of people, when they search for Wi-Fi and they connect, free Wi-Fi, and then they're not aware that there could be an attack from that free Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Which now constitutes to man in the middle attack. Can you tell us more on this?
Yeah, that's very true. So free Wi-Fi is usually, you know, they say there's no such thing as something free.
Yeah.
In some cases there is. So if you're going to like a restaurant and they offer free Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
But yes, you're quite right. Man in the middle is the process of when your device is trying to connect to a Wi-Fi router, and someone sits in the middle and is able to eavesdrop on everything that's getting sent over that communication channel. So man in the middle attacks have been used in very large cases as well, where it's been used to infiltrate. For example, there was malware called Dark Hotel, and it used to infiltrate high-class hotels, and then specifically try and find high value people that come to the hotel and connect onto the Wi-Fi. And this is a legitimate Wi-Fi. It's just infected with malware. And then they can intercept the communication of these high value people in the organization, in the hotel, connecting to the Wi-Fi. And you can just imagine there's politicians coming in and out, there's business
sensitive
magnates.
Information is there.
Absolutely. So yes, Wi-Fi, man in the middle attacks, it's completely invisible to the user. You don't know of anything.
So how can one be aware of this? How can it be avoided?
Well, yes. So number one is be aware of the Wi-Fi that you're connecting to. Make sure that it's something that's got security in place. So there's various different types of security. A lot of our newer devices these days, when you connect to the Wi-Fi, it will tell you whether it's secured or not. That's step one, because that's what you can do from your side. But yeah, the rest of it is pretty much just making sure that the institution or wherever you are connecting to your Wi-Fi or to a Wi-Fi source, that you're able to kind of establish how good their Wi-Fi is, or whether it's someone reputable or a business that you regularly connect to. If it's these always-on connection points, there's so many of them around. I mean, in the airport, for example, there's like 5 of them.
Of course.
Now, someone can easily sit there with their own Wi-Fi router and just call it always on, and you connect to this router. Now it's intercepting your traffic again. So yes, don't use those generic ones. I wouldn't say don't use them, because I know there's guys that promote those, but it's better to know which ones you are. Yes, exactly.
So unsecured ones are not so safe.
No. Unsecured ones is clear traffic. You can pretty much see exactly what's coming through that connection. So you can sit with a very basic tool on the other end and see exactly what you are sending from that line.
With denial of service attacks, what's going on there? Denial of service attacks.
Denial of service is an interesting one. We get that regularly on the N1. That's where so to kind of paint a picture for the listeners. Denial of service is like when you've got a highway and there's an accident, and now suddenly 5 lanes are reduced to 1. The amount of vehicles that can pass a certain point then becomes less. So denial of service works exactly the same. It takes a large amount of what we call packets or data, and it pushes it through to a service. Let's call it, in this case, Google.com. But Google has big infrastructure. They won't easily get taken down by denial of service, but you get the idea. And everyone starts flooding this resource with packets. And what happens is that resource is not capable of responding fast enough
Yes.
to these resources, to these influx of attacks,
Yes.
that it inevitably then falls over and it's not able to serve legitimate customers.
Yeah.
That's basically what
So
it
it exhausts the resources.
100%, yes. It makes it unavailable. So purely by flooding it.
Sure. And then there's SQL injection, which is structured query language. Now, the injection occurs when an attacker inserts malicious code into a server. And that uses the SQL, as we're talking about it, and forces the server to reveal information it normally doesn't. Is that common now?
Yes, it's still commonplace, unfortunately, because it's actually like Hacker 101.
Okay.
So unfortunately, there are still a lot of developers out there that are maybe not as... It comes down to the example I had about the nanny cams and so on.
Yes, those.
They're not focused on the security side of things. So a lot of developers might have resources online, like a www site. That gets hosted with an SQL database in the back end. Now, depending on the versions and the type of vulnerabilities that those databases might have on them, you can use something as simple as an SQL injection. And the scary thing about an SQL injection is that a kid can Google how to do it. It's pretty much inputting a specific type of attack into a text box or a field where it might ask for username or password.
Yes.
And then the website misbehaves. It doesn't actually give what's supposed to happen. It's actually creating queries into the database and revealing data that it's not supposed to be revealing. So that's what you would call an SQL injection. And again, those attacks range, vary in severity, but they could also be part of an attack chain or a much bigger attack that's busy unfolding on the network. Or it could just pretty much be trying to take down or deface a website, or maybe stealing the database to sell the data or something like this.
So that means that the attackers are actually on their toes all the time.
Absolutely, they're always one step ahead. It's like the movies, you know, the criminal movies. You're always one step behind. And I mean, you kind of need to know how to walk before you can run. So for all the listeners out there, one of the things that we keep hammering on is awareness. We're just not aware enough.
True.
And I know people are getting sick of the word awareness because we're using it in various contexts.
Very true.
But it's one of those things they should actually be teaching kids in school. Is the basic acumen of understanding cybersecurity. We've been given these tools in our hands that are so immensely powerful if you think about what they have. And we just told that whatever you do on there, nothing can happen. You feel so removed from reality. But in fact, it's made the world very small. You can hack someone in Hong Kong right now in a split second and get their data. So no, absolutely. It's something that's evolving fast, and we're always kind of a little bit behind the curve of understanding what's happening and what's going to come. However, just one small thing. For larger businesses and so on, they implement what we call SOCs, Security Operations Centers. These businesses usually have certain features and technologies in place that makes use of all the cutting, bleeding edge technologies to do some predictive analysis. By using stuff like threat intelligence and hunting for threats, where you're actually actively looking in your environment and finding threat that you're not aware of yet. That does exist. So unfortunately, it's like many things. It's only available to the big organizations for now, and it will hopefully eventually, as all information technology works, it will find its way to the common user on the street as well.
Tech Talk brought to you by Tamani Technologies and Systems. Tamani Technologies and Systems takes leadership in fourth industrial revolution. The whole world is facing a transformation. The revolution will be developed into the following stages: digitization, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, managed services, document management, and business applications. We provide business transformation and ICT solutions with